Welcome to the Workshop Podcast, hosted by Everthought. Each week we bring you interviews with industry leaders. As a leading Australian registered training organisation specialised in building and construction, we will be sharing our knowledge about trade and education. Whether you are interested in apprenticeship, recognition of prior learning, on-campus studies for international and domestic students, or online delivery, this podcast unpacks what you need to know to start or boost your trades career with insights, tips, and latest news from the government.
Hello, workshoppers, and welcome to episode 2 of the workshop. Tools down, grab some smoko, sit on the eskies and come a little closer. We have a cracking episode for you today. In this episode, we're going to be covering carpentry, and master carpenter Gordon Fenton from our Perth campus joins us for a discussion. Gordon, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm really good, thanks.
Gordon, tell me, how did you get into carpentry?
It all started back in Scotland in 1980 when I applied for my apprenticeship. But before that, I used to help my older brother, who's a carpenter. So I used to help him on jobs at the weekend and just really started loving it. And then got my apprenticeship, and then it's just gone from strength to strength after that.
So tell me a little bit more about your professional background. So you did your apprenticeship?
I did my apprenticeship, which was a 4-year apprenticeship. And then I went self-employed, had my own business up to 2011, and in that time I took my eldest son on as an apprentice. He finished his apprenticeship with me and he's gone from strength to strength.
So a lot of mentoring early on in your career,
Yeah. We had our ins and outs, we had our arguments over the dining room table, but he's gone from strength to strength. In 2009, I went back to college to do night school for construction management.
How'd you find that, going back after all that time?
It was daunting.
Yeah.
Daunting because I wasn't the most academic person at school, but for some bizarre reason, everything clicked.
Do you think that makes you a better teacher today?
I think it does, because you can understand that something may not click at that time, but just with a bit more progression and understanding and a bit more teaching the correct way, things will click, and you've got to make it enjoyable for the students.
I hear that a fair bit, especially, I know you've had a little bit to do with our apprentices here as well. Yeah. And I know with the math subjects, they're all a little bit daunted because they've had it pretty tricky at high school and wherever they may have come from. And then they come here and then they've just been told it a slightly different way, and then it clicks.
I think we make it relevant to what we're doing, to the job. We don't do high school where you're sitting down doing mathematics from a maths teacher and it's quite boring and it doesn't mean anything to you. But coming here and working out how to, for instance, work out a plumb cut for a roof, you're going to use that for the rest of your life if you're ever doing roofs, no matter what. It helps with everything. So I think being it more relevant to the subjects you're doing, I think the guys can understand it. And also, I'm not a maths teacher. I do it basic, right, which will help the guys. Do you know? So
no, I love it, because you're basically teaching them exactly how you would do it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm doing it. It may not be the correct mathematical way, but as long as you get the same results and you can understand it, happy days. Yeah, exactly.
So you're in night school.
Night school. So I did that for 2 years, and for some bizarre reason, won Student of the Year, which I've never excelled at school or anything, so that was very pleasant. And then I got into management. I became an assistant site manager with Milne Homes in Scotland. After 2 years, I became a site manager, and I was up there till 2019, till I came out here. So that was 8-9 years with the same company.
What sort of construction were you doing there?
We were doing residential houses, 2-storey, but also doing block of flats. So I could be in charge. At one time, I was in charge of a block of flats and also 30 private houses at one go.
And how do they, for those that don't know, how does that differ in terms of the construction process?
In what way?
Every way. That's so helpful, I know.
Yeah. Well, when you're doing a 2-storey house, you've got your slab and then you build your kit to suit. But when you're actually doing a block...
And by kit, you mean?
Timber kit. We used to make our own timber kits.
So not double brick construction like we see here in Western Australia.
No, definitely not. I don't like double brick. But anyway.
Oh, salacious.
Yeah. No. So we did a 2-story house. We did a timber kit. But when you're doing a block of flats, it was also a timber kit, but you could have 3 or 4 stories. So it's totally different health and safety wise. And when you've got maybe 40 or 50 guys or operatives on site, that's a lot to look after, to keep them in line and make sure they're safe. Because you want them to go home at night safe.
Timing important on those sites?
Definitely, because we had a programme. We had 14 to 16 weeks to build a 2-story house, and a block of flats was probably between 22 to 25 weeks. And that was from as soon as the foundations was dug out. So if you missed due to the inclement weather, you had to make that time up. Because folk were relying on, the business was relying on these houses to come in. Because it's not like across here where you start paying your mortgage as soon as you bought the land. You don't pay your mortgage until you actually get the keys to the house. So that company is outlaying all that money to build that house without any return. So the quicker we did it, means the quicker the money was coming into the company.
Which is obviously important for builders.
Important for builders, and it kept me in a job.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So after that time as a manager, what happened? What was next?
I came across here, and my first job after 8 months, because I was out of work, was helping charity Bridging the Gap teach Aboriginals with disabilities carpentry.
Wow.
Yeah.
How was that? That's a bit different.
That was an eye-opener.
Yeah.
A total eye-opener for me, but these guys were great. And a lot of them were reformed drug addicts who'd been inside prison. A lot of them had a lot of learning difficulties. So we're only building cubby houses for charities. We were non-for-profit, so we had to give these cubby houses away. But these guys took ownership. They did their Aboriginal paintwork on it. They actually did ownership for these cubby houses, which they excelled.
How did you tailor your approach from obviously being a site manager in Scotland to managing young Indigenous men and women to building cubby houses? Because it's quite a step, and I'd imagine that'd be quite a culture shock.
You've got to put another twist on it. You've got to understand where these guys are coming from and the difficulties they face every day, which was a learning curve for myself, because being new in the country, and I was there for a year. It was only because of COVID the programme got shut down. NDIS didn't want to fund it anymore.
That's a shame.
Yeah. But some of these guys got jobs in the mines off it. Some of them got apprenticeship. So it was a win-win. And it was a win-win for me as well, because it opened me up to that culture.
And again, you're teaching a little bit more, you're mentoring a little bit.
Yeah, totally. And it was a different way of teaching. Rather than try to teach an apprentice, these guys had some learning difficulties. So you had to take baby steps to show them how to use a saw, show them how to cut properly, how to measure out. Some of them couldn't even read a tape. So we had to just take baby steps and give them time to evolve.
So what was next after that?
Then I was fortunate enough to get started here as a trainer, which was, I didn't think I would ever be a teacher, to be fair.
But that's so weird, because I can see an evolution.
But do you think a person who left school with no qualifications, who got his apprenticeship, who got his HNC, suddenly become a teacher? It's like, wow,
Yeah.
But then I'm only teaching what I've learned over the last 42 years.
That's a lot of experience.
Well, it's a lot of years. It's a lot. It's a lot of life skills as well. And I'm actually, I really gel with some of the students here, because some of them are really wanting to learn. And you're passing all this experience on where they might not get that out in sight, or a different aspect or a different twist of how to do things,
So what would you say then to someone that was sort of considering doing a carpentry course with you, Gordon?
Yeah.
And I know you get rave reviews from your students, because I've sat in these meetings and they all want to hang out with Gordon. The feedback is always, I want more time with Gordon. So what would you say to a student that was considering the course? What are you going to be able to teach them that maybe somebody else can't?
I can teach them life skills. I can teach them the way I was brought up as a carpenter, old-time carpentry. And also how to do things quicker and methodically, so you can make money, because that's the bottom line. You're here to make money. You know, if you're a carpenter, yeah, you may love the job and you may find great pleasure in doing it, but you still need to get paid at the end of the week. And if you're on price work, you've got to do it as quick as you can, but safely and up to a certain standard that it's acceptable to all. You can't just be hash and bash and throw it up. It's got to be, you got to take pride in your work. But it's a great opportunity. You know, my son, he went into management as well. He became an assistant site manager, senior site manager, and now he's a contracts manager. So if I was still with that company, he'd be my boss.
That would be scary.
It would be scary. And, you know, he's done excellent. I'm so proud of him. I don't think I'd like him to be my boss, because he'd probably recall things that I said to him and did to him when he was an apprentice. So it would be his payback, but I'm really, really proud of him. But there's an opportunity. You don't have to just stay a carpenter. Look at myself. I'm now a trainer, team leader. I train the other guys.
The cool thing is that it opens you up to so many more possibilities, because whether we like it or not, you know, being hands-on on the tools, there is a limited lifespan to that.
Of course there is.
And there is then opportunities beyond your trade, but your trade is then your bread and butter, and then you're developing as a person and a professional from there.
You've got to use your trade. You know, I'm 16-year-old, I came into the trade. I was a 48 when I went back to college and when I started into management, because by then my body was finished. I couldn't. The two guys I worked with, my son and the other guy, they were carrying me as such. Yeah, I could do the theory side, the marking out, but the heavy lifting and the going the fast way to do things, I slowed right down. I've had to then, that's why I went into management, to use my skills, because what else could I do? It's very hard for somebody at 48 to retrain. So you've got to use your life skills and your apprenticeship to further your career. And that's what carpentry does. You can. Majority of site managers or supervisors are carpenters. You won't find many. You'll find maybe some bricklayers, painters, very few, plumbers, very few, and electricians, very few. Majority is the carpenters, because we're there from day one, the foundations, right up to roof level, right up to Mrs. Smith getting the key for the house. So that's why they're looking at carpenters to be site supervisors. So if you want to go down that route, it's not for everyone, but if you want to go down that route, you've got opportunity to do it.
So it's middle of O week at the moment at the campus, and one of the things I'm really intrigued by is what sort of characteristics and attributes do you see in people that you think are then going to excel on in your carpentry course?
If they're willing to learn, if they're open to new ideas, and they soak it up like a sponge. They soak up all the information, and they're wanting to learn, and they're wanting to improve, and they're practicing, helping each other and progressing in that way.
So being curious, maybe?
Sorry?
Being curious?
Yeah, curious. Oh yeah, asking questions. There's never a wrong question. And if I don't know the answer, I don't know everything. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to ask someone else, or we Google it.
So that's a really cool point that we can elaborate on a little bit further. How do you create that safe space in the class where people feel like they can ask questions?
Because you become friends with them. You make it, you put down all the barriers. You know, you tell that Scotland is God's country, and
it's not.
It's not, I know, but it's, yeah, you've got to be serious. But you've also got to relax a bit and be friends with them. Now, maybe because I was on my bridging visa for 3 years, I've got the kind of same line as these guys, that they're on visas, so I know what it's like. I'm new in the country, so I'm learning stuff. So we've got a lot of stuff in common. We've also got one thing in common in carpentry. They're wanting to learn, so I'm willing to teach them. You'll get some guys who are put a brick wall up that they don't want to learn. You've got to break that down. You've got to break it down. And I had one guy, Charles, when I first started in my class two years ago, and I thought, oh, he's going to be trouble. And honestly, after 3 or 4 months, he turned around and he was one of the best students. He just turned himself around. He was tidying up at the end, asking questions. It was a great revelation. Just to see that spark. It was great.
I love it. I love hearing the passion in your voice about it as well. Do you have any other student success stories?
That class I've just finished, brilliant class. All 8 of them, absolutely excellent. Hess was a guy from South Korea who wouldn't say boo to a goose. Wouldn't. And he brought lollies in for me every day.
I remember Hess from the graduation.
Yeah. And, you know, his wife and son was back home because of COVID. He couldn't be across. He here on his own. So he used to come in a wee bit down and we used to have a wee few jokes and help him out. And his progression was unbelievable as well. He couldn't even hold a saw properly. And by the end of the 2 years, he was building a model roof, hanging a door, fitting a lock, skirting architraves, thinking for himself. And the whole class is like that. But I've also taken other classes on. Arthur from Brazil, you know, he was the one that said the cake was for me because he knows I like to eat.
Don't we all?
Yeah, it was actually an eye-opener, the respect they had for me. I didn't think I had that. You know, they all respected me, but I respected them as well. And because, you know, I've just passed my bike test, they've asked me out on a bike ride.
That's cool.
Well, it's a bit scary, but yeah. But what other job would you get that?
I can't think of any.
You wouldn't get that other job. You wouldn't get that rapport with the students and the interconnection with them.
Let's put it this way, I'm not that close to my economics teachers, I can tell you that.
Yeah, you know.
So they've all gone on to do things still in carpentry.
Yeah, a lot of them have done that. Arthur, I was speaking about, is now in charge of maintenance at a hotel. Marcos, for example, has got his own demolition company. Tawana, who was always buying tools, loved him to bits.
Gear junkie?
Yeah, she's now working with a carpenter full time. Right, and the things, I used to call him grandfather because he's roughly the same age as me, and the progression in him is unbelievable. And now he's working with a carpenter. I've got other guys from my other classes that work with carpenters, and that's the key. You've got to work in the trade. There's no point doing this course if you're going to be a waitress. No disrespect to a waiter or waitress, but you've got to be learning the skills that we're teaching you
and then applying them.
And applying them.
What are some difficulties that you see some students go through, and then how do they overcome it?
Language barrier.
Yep.
Especially because I've got an accent. So I've had to probably speak a bit slower than what I would normally speak in Scotland because we speak very fast. Terminology. The guys have got to understand all the different terminology. But that comes, if you're willing to teach, if you're willing to study and listen to what your trainer is saying, and also do research yourself, you will progress. Yeah, different culture, because these guys are from all over the world. And that's actually a great thing, because you're bringing your own culture to the workplace. I can't remember now, but some of the Indian guys were trying to teach me Indian.
That's
and
cool.
I couldn't get it. I just, one who's from South Korea, she was trying to teach me Korean.
That's cool.
And it's just having that laugh.
Yeah.
And I was making a fool of myself by trying to say good morning in Korean.
That's really cool, though.
Yeah. But it's just letting yourself go, I think, and breaking down these barriers.
That's another really, I keep saying an interesting point because it's all fascinating to me. The query I've got then is that these students start not knowing anyone, or literally come from different corners of the globe.
Yeah.
And then they've got their own network then, and then it becomes their global network, if you like.
It becomes a family.
What's that like to observe, nurture?
Unbelievable. Because when they come on day one, what I do is, okay, well, 10-minute talk about each other. What's your goals? Where are you from? Have you got family here? You know, just a wee bit of life story about. Then I give them a life story myself. But to the end, they'll probably end up setting up a WhatsApp group or whatever. And I'm sometimes included that as well. And they keep speaking to each other. And it's like a family. And they'll help each other out with jobs. They'll help each other when we're getting the wood pavement. You know, how do we go about that? And they're all helping each other because this is their family across here. Their family is back home, but unless they've got family here, they're on their own. So they gel together And we become a family as such. I was getting called Papa Smurf by some of them, right? You know? So what? I don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they see me as a father figure. So if they've got a problem, Gordon, can I have a wee chat? And it doesn't go any further. It's between me and them.
Yeah.
And it's just, they want someone to speak to. We've become a family.
That's awesome. That's really, really cool. The next question I've got for you then is, how do you maintain the industry relevance of the carpentry course?
We do a lot of research with Buildsome, so I show them a lot of videos on certain aspects of the trade, whatever unit we're covering for that time. We also got Study Spot, which has got a lot of great information in it. I have also got a lot of literature in the workshop, which I work to and adhere to, and they've also got different certificates and that to read up on as well. So I've got to give them up-to-date information. So I've got to be up-to-date with information, which is a lot of my professional development, is that I've got to read up on certain codes or whatever. So
you're staying relevant as well within your profession as well?
Yes, I've got to, yeah. Otherwise, I could be teaching them what I did 5 years ago.
Why can't you do that?
Because things change all the time. Relevant codes change all the time. Relevant practices may change. So you've got to be up to date in what you're teaching. So I try to do a lot of research as well. I read a lot of manuals or whatever, podcasts, listen to that, just to get the relevant information. So I'm trying to give my student the best teaching I can give. Because if I don't want to teach them, if I don't want to do my best, then who's going to help them? And that's what we're here to impact lives. We're here to teach them carpentry, give them the basics, so when they go in the big wide world, they can hold their own and hopefully make a career for themselves.
So technology and social media has changed an awful lot of what we do, even just in the last 3 or 4 years, let alone the last 10, 20 years. So how have you managed to adopt that into your classes? Because obviously it can't be all practical all the time.
No.
Well, it's a massive component of what we do. But then how do we maximize the technology that we have available to offer maximum value to our students?
Now, you know I'm not very good with modern technology.
I know, I'm sorry, it was an unfair question.
Yeah, totally unfair. But I source Google and I'll put in Buildsome, how to do a pitch roof. And there is hundreds and hundreds of videos on carpentry that I show in my workshop as a PowerPoint to let the guys see someone else do it, how they would do it, how they would work something out. We can Google everything. I just don't do that all the time.
Yep.
I've got other PowerPoints that I go through. I do a lot. I start off with theory first of all. Mm-hmm. Give them a wee basic theory. Let them do a bit of practical.
Why do we do that? Why do you do the theory first before the practical?
So they can understand the concept of what we're doing. There's no point saying, right, we're going to do a pitch roof and you're going to do 25 degree. Here's the book, sort it out. Right? You've got to teach them the basics first. How do we work? We've got this thing called a red book, which will give us all the degrees to work out every angle of roof we're doing. Now, if I just threw that book to them and said, right, on you go, they wouldn't have a clue. So we've got to do the theory side of it, what each component is, why are we building that roof in that stages, why are we setting it out like that. So when it comes to practical, they're doing it. Now, they may not understand all of it, so what then I do is a bit of theory, we'll start the practical, but I can actually stop that practical and say, okay, we're going to jump back. And for this component, we're going to do theory again for an hour, just to reinforce what we're doing. So then when they go back and doing it, they know exactly what they're doing. You can't just say, right, this week, guys, we're going to do stairs. Go and work out that stairs. You've got to do the theory side of stairs. Because with stairs, there's a lot of regulations. And if you don't get the regulations right, somebody will come round and tell you to rip that stair out because it doesn't adhere to whatever regulation. So I go through all the regulations, the formula, how to work out, how to mark out a stair, how to build a stair, and then they'll do it in practical. But we can also revert back to the theory at any point, so there's a good understanding of both components.
That's amazing. So Oh, that brings me on to the next conversation that I want to have is material. So obviously, due to COVID, due to a multitude of different reasons, massive timber shortage at the moment. How do you ensure that we get the best materials that we possibly can do at the campus?
I source the best material that we can do through our timber merchants, and then
Local?
local, definitely local, yeah. We have a slight problem at the moment because one of the sawmills is closed down south, so trying to get the best material is a bit more challenging, but we do that. But it's also up to the students to pick the best material.
Tell me more about that.
Well, when you pick a bit of 4x2, a bit of 100 by 50, it's never going to be perfectly straight. So you look down the edge of a bit of timber, you look down the face of it, so you're picking the best timber that you can work with.
So the students actually get to pick it, learn how to pick.
They have to pick the material. That's
cool.
part of the course as well. They have to know handle carpentry material. So they have to know how to handle the material, how to use it, and how to look for a good bit, bad bit, because you can get shakes in timber. And it's all about trying to get the best bit of timber for you to work with to produce the best job. Now, that's not always possible, but then you just have to work round.
And is that something that you teach them as well? If you get lemons, make lemonade.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like if you're putting in joists, you have to keep the round up. So when a certain person of my stature stands on it, it's going to straighten it down. Sure. But if you put the round down, any weight, you end up breaking that joist.
Yeah, okay.
So you put the round up, so when you look down the timber, because every timber's not perfectly straight, there's going to be a bit of a round in it. And that's the same when doing timber studs. So that's how we have to tell the guys, right, when you pick your timber, you keep the round up, you mark where the round is, so when you're laying it out, doing joists or timber studs, all the rounds are in the same way. And that's just wee little steps to learn as they go through their carpentry course over the 2 years.
And the way that we're making this podcast sound is that you're going to be doing joists, trestles, all the fun stuff. Yeah. But how does it start?
First of all, you can't just throw a guy in and say, right, we're going to joist this floor. Because they don't know. They've got to get the hand tools. So we give them joints, we give them how to use a plane properly, how to sharpen tools. Because if your tools aren't sharp.
So it's not power tools straight off the...
No, it's not power tools. Hand tools, first of all, hand saw, how to cut square, how to mark properly, how to chisel out without bursting the timber the other side, how to sharpen tools so your tools are sharp to use, how to plane properly, how to put a bevel on a bit of timber by using a plane. And then we progress into the power tools. Because if you can do it with hand tools, when it comes to power tools, it'll be a lot easier. But you've got to have the hand skills, because sometimes your battery might be dead on your cordless, on your circular saw. The power may be out. So you've got to revert back to the hand tools. And if you can't do it in hand tools, then you're going to be struggling. So that's why we learn how to use a coping saw. A lot of folk, I'll just use a jigsaw. But if you can use your coping saw and get your hand coordination correct, then when it comes to power tools, it'll be a lot easier.
That's really insightful. Yeah. So if someone was considering carpentry, what would you say to them?
Come along. Have a look at the workshop. See what kind of models we're doing. Speak to the trainers. See the passion these trainers have got, and give it a shot. Give it a go, because you won't look back. You know, if you really want to do this and you could make a good living and life for yourself or your family or whatever, it's a great opportunity. I was very fortunate that I had an insight with my brother doing it. I didn't want my son to come into the building trade. He came into carpentry and he's excelled. So if I can do it, anybody can do it.
I think that's a perfect way to end this. Gordon, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And this is episode 2 of our trainer workshop series, where we're showcasing all the different trades. You can find Gordon at the Perth campus, and that's the end of our episode. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Workshop Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you again next week. The podcast is hosted by Everthought Education. RTO 32438.